Thank you. So thank you, Boerne Area Democrats, for having me. I always feel so welcome and so comfortable every time I come visit with Kendall County or with Boerne Area Democrats. So thank you so much. So my name is Claudia Zapata, for those of you that I have not been able to meet, and I am running for U.S. Congress in Texas's 21st Congressional District against Chip Roy. I am one of the 6 primary individuals, one of the 6 individuals to have ran in the primary. And I was very fortunate and very, very appreciative that we were able to walk away with 47.2% of the vote. So we narrowly missed avoiding a runoff, but I am currently in a runoff. Early voting for that starts on May 16th, and the runoff date is May 24th. And there should be some also push cards on the table as well with those dates for you to keep handy. I guess I want to start with everyone's favorite question, which is, why are you running for office? You know, what made you want to do this in the first place, especially in rural Texas? Well, my answer, to put it very plainly, is family. There is no one on this earth that I would fight for, kill for, do anything for other than my family. And when I look at rural Texas, when I drive through rural Texas, when I block walk, when I have community events, I see so much of my family in each and every individual person that I come in contact with. So I was born in Austin, lived there for about 10 years. Then my grandfather was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and he lived on the border, so Mission, McAllen, Edinburgh area, deep South Texas. And we moved out there to help care for him. It was at this age that I learned very, very quickly that people make the decision to die in order to avoid medical debt. So although my grandfather was a veteran, there was no VA hospital within a 3-hour driving distance of him, and we could not afford to continue chemo or radiation. So he said, I don't want to die and burden y'all with my leftover medical debt, so I choose to forego all care and treatment, and I'll just be at in-home hospice. And so for 3 years, I lived with and cared for my grandfather on a daily basis. And I know that story is just one of thousands, one of millions, which is extraordinarily sad. However, at the time, as a child, you don't really understand that. It's not until I became older that I realized, holy crap, that is a policy failure. It is a policy failure for people to make the decision to die instead of burdening their families with medical debt or feeling that they can't afford the care and treatment that they need that could help them survive. So it's issues like that, like healthcare. Whenever I go out and I drive around throughout this district, and I see that there aren't really, 1, rural hospitals, 2, but just regular everyday preventative and routine care clinics throughout much of the district. I mean, I drove an hour and a half over here, and I passed maybe, I think, 1 doctor's office, and that was it. And that's through an hour and a half, 72-mile drive. So we need to talk about healthcare in rural Texas and really address it, not just in terms of rural hospitals, which is everyone's favorite way of talking about rural healthcare. And as far as I'm concerned, a hospital is the last place that you want to end up at. That's for emergency situations only. So we need to figure out how it is that we bring more healthcare jobs here to rural Texas to increase the amount of preventative and routine care clinics that we have. Additionally, that's also saving our taxpayer money. It is much more expensive for us to reimburse Medicaid and Medicare dollars at the hospital emergency level than it is to care for people during the preventative and routine care plans, as they're growing up and aging. So we have to be able to invest in our long-term infrastructure in order to reap those long-term benefits and impacts. Another issue that is very important to me is food accessibility. Just this morning, I'm a part of a group, a Facebook group that's called Kerrville News and More, and a young woman had posted in it saying that she and her husband had recently moved to Oregon, but her father was still located in Kerrville and had said, I don't have enough money to eat but once a day. And she was posting on that group asking for help and saying, is there any sort of assistance? Is there Meals on Wheels? Is there something that helps veterans who are hungry, who don't have the ability to eat, 3 meals a day? And the fact is that food insecurity is rampant throughout this district. And the thing is, food insecurity isn't going to look like, can I have samosa? Like people standing on the corner begging for food. That's not the way it works. A lot of these individuals do have jobs, right? But they are just struggling to be able to keep up with the cost of living, right? With this rising cost of living that we have. And so we need to make sure that with 98% of this district being located within U.S. Department of Agriculture defined food deserts, which means that people don't live within 20 miles of a grocery store, if we can sell our land and give tax breaks and subsidies and credits to these corporations who just want to come here, build, exploit, damage our water, pollute our air. If we can do that, then we can sure as hell build grocery stores. There is no way that we can continue down this path. TX21 is made up of 10 counties, and 2 of the counties, Real and Bandera, are in the top 10 counties out of all 254 counties within Texas to have the highest rates of food insecurity. In Real County, 1 in every 4 families suffers from food insecurity, and in Bandera, that's 1 in every 8. These are our neighbors. These are people that we must care for, regardless of party and political affiliation. Everyone deserves the right to have access to groceries, to food. Everyone has the right to medical care and treatment, whether it's life-saving or not. If it's just preventative, routine checkup, everyone deserves to have access to that. And another issue that I have found is of the utmost importance without the entire district is our environment. Now, do people come to the table for the same reasons? Not really. So I've met with folks from the Stop Vulcan 3009 group, Texas Hill Country Alliance, Texas Hill Country Preservation Society, Sunrise Movement, Sierra Club as well. And every single story that I have heard from every single group is we have such unmitigated growth that is happening at such an exponential rate that we are not thinking about the larger impacts and ramifications that we have building upon our aquifer. Majority of TX21 exists above Edwards Aquifer, and yet we don't have many protections and water conservation and management practices that help protect that very important body of water, which fuels basically all of Central Texas. And so we need to be able to mitigate, and appreciate that growth is already happening. It's not something that we can stop, right? So I'm not saying, growth is terrible, it's bad for everyone. No, growth in some instances is great. However, there are things that we can do that Chip Roy will not speak about in terms of creating federal environmental protections for our waters in order for us to maintain our pristine waters, all the way to maybe possibly declaring this like a national park, the hill country, in order to keep the sanctity and the beauty and the tourism alive, which fuels a lot of the economy within this district. Additionally, on top of that, I've spoke with farmers, with wineries, as well out in Fredericksburg and even along down 281? Yeah, there's, quite a bit of wineries. And in speaking with them, they also say, one of the other bigger issues is we want to legalize marijuana. That would instantaneously drive up the amount of profits and economy, and jobs that we have located within this district. Chip Roy recently voted against legalizing marijuana. For what reason? I have no clue. We have already figures that say it would bolster the Texas economy by $10 billion within the first 2 years of being legalized. And a large majority of that impact is going to be felt in very tourist-heavy areas, such as our district. And I believe that I am the fighter that we need to take on Chip Roy in November. How do we beat an old, white, fascist man? We put him up against a loud, very proud, brown, queer woman who is not afraid to throw punches. One of my favorite stories is that on primary election day, I got a message from Chip on Twitter. And my mother was in an accident on election day, so it wasn't the way I wanted it to go. But so he said, condolences to your mama, all that fun stuff. And then he also said, and I can't, and I look forward to running against you in November. So he is watching because he is absolutely terrified what this proud Mexicana woman is about to do. Because we are shaking things up within this district. We are specifically targeting communities that have not been engaged, that don't have representation. And for an area, for this district, it is over 50% communities of color, with over 33% being Hispanic, Latino identifying families. So why have we not had equal representation? And that is my goal, is to engage with these individuals in a very culturally competent manner, in only the manner that someone who has grown up exactly like them can relate to and can speak to. And we really do share those same values. I honestly believe that, while 50% of my family, I'm not afraid to admit it, voted for Trump, and they're still very pro-Trump, and 50% of my family, voted for Biden and Clinton, and we're very democratic. The one thing that is common that we share amongst us is our values. And I know that can sometimes be a little controversial, but the fact of the matter is that I am a culmination of all of my family members. I have a very tight-knit, close group family. And so I know that I would not be who I am today had I not had equal parts of that. Right? They all had a hand in shaping who I am. And I love who I am. I'm very proud of who I am. So I know that we're able to communicate our values via our policies. A lot of the times, Democrats, we often feel like we're having to play on the defensive. So we're always having, it feels like as if Republicans get to choose the talking points, and all we do is say, like, no, that's bad, no, like, we actually care. And I'm tired of that. I am sick and tired of that. And I don't want to stick to Republican talking points. I don't want them to be able to determine what it is that we talk about, which is why I talk about the things that no one does. That's why I talk about food accessibility and our land and air in terms of workforce, jobs, but also just from a climate change perspective. That's why I talk about healthcare, not just in terms of having insurance, which is great. You can throw insurance at people, doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be able to have access to a doctor's office. The same way that if you throw food stamps at individuals and EBT at folks, doesn't mean they all of a sudden have access to a grocery store. So there are deeper infrastructural issues that we need to address that aren't discussed. And I want to be that woman to be able to take it to Chip and say, all right, Chip, what do you have to say for yourself? These are issues that you know exist within your district. And you can't play dumb, because I know you have people out here on the ground who tell you about these issues. So, it's time to face the facts. And I want to be the one to light the flame under Chip's butt. So, with that, I just want to say thank you all so much for giving me your ears for today, and I look forward to further representing all of rural Texas, in what capacity, who's to say, but hopefully, I will be that Democratic nominee, and I'm going to fight every damn day like I have been to make us proud and to make real change here. So thank you. Okay, and then we'll go back.
During the 2018 campaign, I saw Chip Roy debate Joseph Copser, and the first thing out of his mouth was deep state, evil, dark, satanic, whatever. So how are you prepared to counter when he immediately attacks the Democratic Party and paints us as, you know, the evil empire trying to take over white Christian Texas.
Well, so I guess here's the fun part. And so I've been working on campaigns for the last 10 years. And so I'm very, very aware of traditional voter targeting methods. And we are doing the complete opposite, in fact. So what we have done is we have put every single voter within this district into one of 6 clusters. So we realize that people exist on a political spectrum. You know, just because someone's blue doesn't mean everyone's the same shade of blue. Just because someone's red doesn't mean everyone's the same shade of red. And so because we have these 6 clusters, we have been able to pinpoint, okay, well, you know, what are the types of issues and what are the voices that are really coming out and being, you know, and are present at the voting box, you know, amongst this district. And so for that group that Chip seems to appease to, we call them the Fox and Friends group. So that is going to be the furthest red that you can just about get. The good news is that Fox and Friends group is actually overrepresented within media and within TX21 politics. The majority of Republican voters fall in what we call picket fence Betty Drapers. And so that means that they are individuals who are like old school Republicans. So we call them like Nixon, Reagan, Republican era individuals. So this idea that Chip is catering to a very, very small group of individuals, I think the way that we counter that is by, one, saying, okay, really, like, you're just hyping yourself up, dude. Like, there's not a lot of people who agree with you, right? And if they do, they're not in this district, I can tell you that. But also, you know, we also have to say and admit that the Democratic Party also isn't perfect. I have no problem telling people that, you know, I consider myself, you know, while, you know, I vote straight Democrat, I consider myself a bluish independent in the sense that I find a lot of issues with the Democratic Party. Is it because I don't believe in the Democratic Party or because I believe that we're somehow evil or bad? No. I have these issues and I vocalize them because I know that we can do better, because I know where our values stand. And so I'm able to say to Chip, you know, well, Chip, if, you know, we're so deep and evil and whatnot, then can you explain your voting history? You know, if you're so Republican, why did you vote against veterans who were faced with toxic chemicals, you know, while on duty? You know, you voted against them getting aid. You know, why is that? You voted against veterans who have come down with ALS as a result of some of the impacts that they've had while serving our wonderful country. Why did you vote against that? You voted against hazard pay for law enforcement officers and for firefighters during the COVID pandemic. You know, my family members who were out there serving us, right? And you voted against them getting more money for sacrificing their lives the way that they did. Why did you vote against that? We're so deep and evil, right? So, you know, tell me why. Why does me wanting to vote yes on these issues make me so deep and evil? And I think, you know, it's just really, it has to be someone that's not afraid to pack the punches. I have a lot of respect for Copser and for Wendy Davis, you know, for running in this seat. But I also feel that they were not the right candidates. There is a sense of being too polished, too centrist, too scared to actually go above and beyond and really fight the way that Republicans fight. And the thing is, like, I have nothing to lose. I am poor, I am brown, I am a woman living in the state of Texas, right? So it can't get much worse for me. So, you know, so I'm not afraid to throw these things back at Chip's face.
So you're willing to go negative?
Oh yeah, oh definitely. Yes, I mean, I have no problem with that, with saying, you know, if you're so Republican, why'd you do this? You know, why did you vote this way? I would have voted yes. I would have voted yes to pay our law enforcement officers and our firefighters. And I would have voted yes to support our volunteer fire departments with extra federal aid. Yeah, like why does that make me bad?